My name is Gemma Colgan and I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager at the Foundling Museum in Bloomsbury. The museum uses Twitter along with other social media platforms such as Facebook, Flickr and YouTube to engage with some of our existing audiences and hopefully draw in new audiences. So we would use it to update events that are happening at the museum, so public programming, concerts, behind the scenes activity, so things that are happening in our store when objects are arriving in and out of the museum. I know the Foundling Museum started using Twitter in 2009. I joined the Foundling Museum in 2010, and at that point we maybe had 50 or 60 followers. So I just undertook the page. There weren't massive discussions, it was very organic in its growth. The museum itself is very young, we've only been open since 2004, so this maybe reflects the organisation and how the museum was set up. And over the years, we've kind of built up a strategy, knowing what works and doesn't work. A core visitor to the museum, a typical visitor to the Foundling, are maybe a couple or a woman over 50 or 60. They're usually retired and they would be keen museum visitors or culture seekers. They would seek us out and maybe visit 20 or so museums a year. So we were specifically targeting, knowing that that type of audience wouldn't be massively tuned in to social media, using online resources to find out about museums. So we were targeting maybe the 25 to 35-year-old audience. We didn't have any specific reservations in using Twitter. The obvious ones, such as with any online accounts, is hacking. Other than that, because of the nature of this organic growth, I think it was kind of, let's see how it goes and we'll pick up on what our reservations are along the way. It's not necessarily about popularity, about having 20,000 followers, but it's the level of engagement that I'm much more concerned with. The people that are talking about us or favouriting our tweets, using the hashtag to talk about our events, as well as targeting other organisations and local communities, targeting an age range that we don't have massive footfall into the museum, so 25 to 35-year-olds. When we've had events targeted at them, they have always been the events that have been most talked about on Twitter, so I would regard that as a success. When I first started using it, I was under the assumption it was very, very similar to the type of people that follow us on Facebook, so that they could work unified together, and they were two platforms but speaking to the same audience. But on analysis of our Facebook page and just my feeling of what happens on our Twitter page, they are actually very different audiences. So where I used to try and promote or push some products or family activities on one page, they would be a lot more received than on the other. It's all come from experience, so we've been using those platforms now for a couple of years, and I know, and we keep them in reports, and we have kind of very loose policy documents that I have put together, and on each lists the potential target audience that you're most likely to reach. I think there is massive value for having one person coordinated and directing the social media. In terms of, maybe giving 5 or 6 people responsibility for doing it could mix up your kind of branding messages, or you've built up an audience over 3 years on the platform and they may be expecting certain types of tweets from you, facts or information behind the scenes of things that what are going on, and bringing new people in could maybe change that direction. When you first set up a Twitter account and place your first tweet, I think your first followers are people that are aligned with what you're trying to do. Maybe researchers in your field that may have Twitter accounts. Follow them, find out who they're following and who's following them, and repeat that process. And then just be really consistent in your tweets. If you're going to do 1 a day or 2 a day, be consistent when this happens, and use tools such as hashtag. So maybe repeat the use of words so they become more prominent and people would maybe associate them with your tweets if you're using specific terms. communicating with our peers is probably I would consider it of importance to us, because it's putting us in a position that is aligning ourselves with these organisations. So people may come along, Twitter does that thing where it recommends potential people that you should follow, and aligning ourselves with those peers kind of puts us in those groups and those lists. But it's not just about pushing and trying to sell all your events all the time. I think engagement and joining in the conversation is just as important as kind of continuously feeding people with, we're doing this, we're selling this, come and see this, because that's what Twitter's about. People are asking questions and having debates, and instead of always being the person saying, you know, asking the question or telling someone to come somewhere, maybe answer other people's questions, and then you can kind of join in that whole social conversation.